Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Right, listen, it does look like we are doing, you know what? I think we're just doing World War III updates right now. The situation is bad. It's only going to get worse. The escalations in the Middle East is just like going beyond belief right now. And listen, I'm going to call it right now, as I've said many, many times, the government are not ready for what is coming. People of Britain, British troops are not protected. They're absolutely not protected. The British public are absolutely not protected. And as we move forward, the only people, the people at the bottom are ultimately going to be the ones that, the people at the bottom are ultimately going to be the ones that pay. Now, let me just give you guys an update real quick of some of the things we've been talking about on this channel. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because it is really relevant when I talk about, what is, when I talk about what is coming. So a long time ago, we, on this channel, you know what, actually, let me go back even further. The reason I don't know if you guys know this. The reason, me and Sarah started these channels, first of all, it was to keep people updated on what's happening, because back in, 2022, and I know I've said this a few times, back in 2022, when the big invasion of Ukraine happened, obviously the invasion of Ukraine happened in 2014. When the 2022 invasion of Ukraine happened, my mum, she phoned me up, and, she said, Sean, can you come and let me in? Because we have quite a long driveway, and there are big gates at the bottom. There's like rose bushes growing over the top of them. It's not impossible to get in, but it's very difficult without a ladder and some secateurs. And then, maybe some bolt croppers, because there's barbed wire underneath that, underneath the rose bushes as well. So in 2022, my mum phoned up. So I went down, and my mum was stood there, right? She was in absolute flat panic. She was, she was terrified. She'd been crying. She had two big bags. She had two big Aldi bags, basically. I said, what's wrong? Anyway, at that time, I had probably 4 different phones going, emails constantly. I was dealing with people in the United States, in Canada. I was dealing with people in Ukraine. I was dealing with people in Australia. I was trying to do as much as I could in that initial week, and then I actually went out there. My mum thought that there was going to be nuclear weapons, right? My mum straight away, she was like, Sean, are they going to send nuclear weapons? I was like, no, absolutely not. And she had she had these 2 Aldi bags, and one was full of chunky soup, and the other one was full of UHT, that ultra long life milk and tea bags. And she said, Sean, if the nuclear weapons come, can I come and get in your cellar with you? And the amount of anxiety that these things cause, and the reason we started these channels is to bring that, just to explain to people what's happening. Now, because if you don't understand what's happening, and if you don't understand, these processes and these the directions of travel, it is very terrifying. Because you don't know what's coming. However, if you understand them, you can see what is coming. So I've been very clear with everyone, telling people what's coming. And right now, here in the United Kingdom, I do not see any protection for our citizens. 0. We have no protection from criminal gangs. You guys know the ones I'm talking about, right? It's a daily occurrence now that there are gangs doing this, gangs doing that. And by gangs, you guys know exactly what I mean, right? You guys know exactly what I mean when I say gangs. And this news from the government that they're going to pay £40,000 for people to leave the country. I don't even know, like, I can't even bring myself to terms to even consider it anymore. Like, I mean, has anybody even considered it in the government, right? What if, let's first of all, we can't stop people, and I'll come on to Iran, and I'll come on to the conflicts that we're facing and how that's going to affect people on the streets in the United Kingdom. But if we can't stop the boats, nothing else matters. You can give people £1 million. It's not going to, like, so can you imagine now, as a deterrent, as a way of, stopping, smashing the gangs, we're going to pay them 40 grand to leave. Up to 40 grand. So here's the question, and I don't think anybody's even considered, well, they must have, I don't believe that they're this incompetent. This must be, nobody can be this incompetent, right? So let's just pretend, right, that you remember, so we can't stop the boats. It's impossible to stop the boats, right? What happens then if you give someone 40 grand to leave, send them on a nice plane home, they get home and they think, do you know what, actually? Yeah, I think we should go back. It was that, do you know what, actually, the food was better in those hotels. Let's go back. They get on a boat and come back. What are you going to do then? Like, are you going to give them another 40 grand? Are they just going to stay? Like, what do you do then? So all this pomp and pageantry, all these little bits of paper that people are signing, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have this little trip to Denmark, and we're going to look how the Danish are dealing with it, and we're going to look at this. Nothing makes any sense until you stop the boats, right? Until you stop the boats. Imagine having a cut, right? You've got a really bad cut on your leg or whatever, right? And there's blood gushing out everywhere. And everybody's running around talking about how to clean the blood up. And then, people, then you're having this big debate. Well, I think we should put a bucket underneath it. Yeah. Well, if we put a bucket underneath it, eventually that bucket will fill up. So what I think we should do is we should put a sponge underneath it. Yeah. We should put a sponge underneath it. No. What we should do is we should put a tube underneath it and catch the blood and put it into a safe place. Oh, yeah, that'd be a good... Stop the fucking bleeding. Then you don't need to worry about the rest of that shit, right? So when all these things, all these policies, all these movements, all this more money to France, more money to migrants, more money for hotels, none of it makes any sense unless you can stop the boats. Now, I totally understand, guys. I 100% understand that is not the, that's one of many problems, right? Stopping the boats is one of many problems. However, it's a problem that's very easy to stop. And if you cannot do that, then nothing else matters. Like, nothing else matters. So there's the question, guys, with the news, and it's all over the media again today, £40,000, £40,000 to migrants to leave the United Kingdom. What do you think? Do you think when these migrants are getting on the boats, do you think they say, whoa, hang on a minute, what? Listen, if you go over to the United Kingdom, they're going to give you 40 grand to come back. And they're like, what? 40 grand? And they're like, yeah. Well, my average salary at home is only £1,000 a year. So that's like 40 years work. Yeah, but you'll be sent home. So let me get this right. If I go to the United Kingdom and they don't pay for me for the rest of my life and give me a free house, free food, free everything, they're going to send me home with 40 grand? Yes. Right, I'm staying here. Yeah, I'm going to stay here. Karen, unpack your bags, love. Yeah, they're going to send us home with 40 grand. What? Yeah, if we go to the UK, they'll just send us home with 40 grand. Oh, God, right, yeah. Kids, unpack your bags. Trips cancelled. It's so absurd. Like, I don't even know who comes up with this and thinks it's a good idea, right? Because clearly that has had, somebody's had to sit down, they've had to talk about it, and they've had to agree that that is a good idea. unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely unbelievable. And we're doing all this money we are wasting, and we cannot provide protection, security to our overseas bases. It's a national embarrassment, guys. It is. It's a national embarrassment. So this is, let me start with the national embarrassment. So the national embarrassment, all right, if you guys have not seen this, UK staff hours at key naval base handling Cyprus drone strike. Sorry, UK cut staff hours at key naval base handling Cyprus drone strike. Again, another one of the things that I've been warning about. Remember what I've said. We are not ready to fight a war on an industrial scale. I said many times, we are going to lose this war because of bureaucracy. And we are seeing this now. So the United Kingdom, so you know how, right, so this is what's happening right now. I'm not making this up. And if anybody thinks I'm being unfair, please put it in the chat. And if you've not done so already, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you hit those buttons down below. The like, comment, subscribe, share, bell notification, all those things that help me out. So right now, as far as anyone's concerned, RAF Akrotiri is under threat by the Iranians, right? That's the reality, right? Whether you believe that or not, that is the perception right now, okay? A British base is under attack, and they're in a state, and the Middle East is in a state of war, right? So all of a sudden, Britain is going to send HMS Dragon, but guess what? You know, you would expect right now down at Portsmouth, right? You would expect down at Portsmouth, them to be working 24/7, extra manpower, get that ship ready and get that down there, right? No. Because of bureaucracy, the staff can only work 9 till 5. That's what this article is saying, guys. So can you imagine right now, we are literally in a 9 till 5 war. That's what we should call it, 9 till 5 war. London, Britain's Ministry of Defence signed a contract last year ending around-the-clock staffing at key naval base, which a union representing defence workers says is contributing to the delays deploying to defend Cyprus. You could not make this up, guys. You couldn't make this up. It's a national, this is a global embarrassment. This is an absolute global embarrassment. In 1982, when the Argentinians when the Royal Marines surrendered the Falkland Islands to the Argentinians, Margaret Thatcher managed to send an armada down there within 3 days. 3 days, an equipped armada. She said, right, pull all the stops. I don't care what happens. We are sending an armada down as quickly as possible. Resupply it on the move with helicopters, with aircraft. Do whatever you need to. Get down there as quickly as possible. 3 days. 3 days it took. What are we on now? Day 6. Day 6, and British ships are still in the port, being refitted, being administered, having their sandwiches put on there because of workers' hours. And I keep saying, ladies and gentlemen, when this war hits Europe proper, the West, we are totally underprepared because of the vast amounts of bureaucracy. It's crazy. Right, listen, let me jump onto the chat, guys, and then I'll give everyone an update on what's been happening in... Oh, do you know what? Should I do this one? Hang on, I had a funny video, right? Is it that one? No, hang on. I did have a funny video. Where's that gone? Maybe I don't have a funny video. No, I think it must have gone. Right, good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sean, click the 3 dots next to my name. When you hover over my message and make managing mess, right? Google it. I don't have. Right, Google it. Right, okay. I can delete your comment. Right, when I click the 3 dots, Google it. I can delete your comment. I can put you in timeout, or I can ban you and delete your comments. Neither of them I want to do. Danny Stonehouse is saying Navy ships due MOT next month, so Israeli war has to wait. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It is. It's a national embarrassment. Dan Doberman is saying, morning Gaffer, morning Ravens, all hail the Raven Legion. I kind of like that. I feel like I should be part of the Empire. Ecclesburn Glen is saying shortages, chaos, martial law, and the New World Order. That's what I'm seeing as well. I'm genuinely seeing the direction of travel now for this New World Order. If you guys think about it, there's kind of like, I'm convinced now. Look, let's just put this in context, right? The war in the Middle East was very predictable. It was. Do you know what? Do you know how we know it was predictable? Because I told you when that was coming 2 years ago. I went out there, public record. I said, listen, this is going to kick off. And I gave you guys the exact date. So it was predictable, right? Now, Britain's not really involved in this, but, Britain should clearly be able to, defend their assets. Can you imagine the absolute flammery? Can you imagine the absolute flammery right now if when British troops are deployed to Ukraine? Can you imagine how underprepared people will be, and I was watching John Healy today, and I'm sure I do feel he's a good bloke. I feel he's a good bloke. I don't think you can have a defense minister that's not served in the military. Does that sound wrong, guys? Does that sound wrong? What do you think? Like, honestly, guys, as a show, who thinks that you can have a defense minister that's never been in the military? And I'm not meaning that as like anything detrimental. What I'm saying is, if you've never served in the military, you don't know where to look. You don't know when people are bullshitting you. When a colonel comes and tells you that, I don't know, his men can fly, you're like, oh, really? Yeah, my men can fly. Right, okay, whatever then. Yeah, if you can fly, you can fly. Danny is saying, crazy how we are going to war for Israel. I don't think Britain's going to be involved in this conflict, guys. I really don't. I mean, we can't even defend our own airbase. We can't even defend our air bases. The Hertzman is saying, there was an old lady that fell and broke her hip. The ambulance said they would take... What? I don't believe that. Hertzman West, can you put that in the... is there a link to that? Can you tell me where I can find that? Google Enos, I use StreamYard. Yes, I do use StreamYard. Right, Google Enos, right. Give me a second. I'm going to send a picture to you now. Right. So I'm clicking the 3 buttons. Right, I'll send that picture to you, Google Enos. I will send that picture to you. Cheryl Hepperstone is saying, oh, hang on, what did Debbie say? Deborah Phillips. Yeah, winner M2M is saying debate. Meanwhile, the boats keep coming. Yeah, look, if you want to understand if you guys want to understand how bad things are in the United Kingdom, we are literally paying £40,000 per, I'm struggling to even come to terms with this. Yesterday I shared a video with you guys, and there was a guy, and he literally said, there was a guy, and he literally said that he heard the news that migrants were being given £40,000 to leave, and he quit his job. And he quit his job straight away. He said, look, do you know what? I'm not working anymore. I don't want to pay tax anymore for, I don't want to work. I don't want to pay tax because all my money is just going, and that's what people feel like right now. The money you pay in tax, that should be spent on Britain. That should be spent on people who are British and are struggling, not people from other countries who are struggling. That should be paid, that money should be going for, to help people in this country. Right, listen, let me give everyone an update on what's been happening in Iran, because the crisis has thickened. The United States are now using Shahed-type drones against the Iranians. They're moving more assets down there. They're moving more, they're moving more infrastructure down there. Donald Trump said that this conflict, was it Donald Trump? The United States certainly said that this conflict could last until September. Now, I don't know what that means. I'm going to assume that means the bombing runs. Also, it looks like the Peshmerga, is it the Peshmerga? It looks like the Kurds are going to be invading from the north, and also the Azerbaijanis. So listen, guys, let me give you guys some updates on the last the last couple of hours. Well, literally the last couple of minutes, actually. So Iranian Kurdish group have been struck by drones in Iraqi Kurdish region. So for those of you guys who've been following this, in that northern region of Iran, to northwest of Iran, that's where the Kurds look like they're going to come from. And that whole northern region of Iraq, that's like a semi-autonomous region called Kurdistan, with the center being Erbil. So it came out 11 minutes ago. A camp of the Iranian Kurdish fighters, a group based in Iraq, was hit by drones last night. There were 2 drone strikes injuring 2 people. The group was caught completely off guard from what we can tell. Speaking to some of the fighters there, they don't believe the drone was launched from Iran. They believe groups aligned to Iran based in Iraq are responsible. So what you can see now is the whole Middle East is an absolute hotbed. So now it looks like you've got in Iraq, it looks like you've got pro-Iranian Iraqis and potentially pro-American and Israel Iraqis. So it does look like there's skirmishes breaking out within Iraq, and then obviously there's skirmishes on the Pakistani-Afghan border as well. The fighters say they have not been in contact with or received support from the Americans or the Israelis. I'm not entirely sure that's correct, but whatever. But they say they are willing. So the Kurdish say they are willing to mount ground operations. However, the politicians in northern Iraq are painting a different picture. The president of Iraq's semi-autonomous region, Kurdistan, said that Iraqi Kurdistan will not be part of any conflict or military escalation. Well, I've seen these things change pretty quickly. So listen, what I always say on this channel, right? And I think this is true in life. Don't listen to, listen to what people say, but pay more attention to what people do. All right. Talk is cheap. Action is, action is reaction. So if you guys can remember, back in, 2022? Well, it started 2021, actually. Well, it actually started 2020. 2020, 2021, 2022, the Russians were amassing hundreds of thousands of troops on the border with Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of troops on the border with Ukraine. And the Russians were just saying, yes, this is military exercise in territory of Russia. No worry, we are not going to invade. There is no problem. And everybody like me, analysts and people who understand the situation and understand how much it costs to move tanks, equipment, put up field hospitals. We're all saying that, we were saying, no, this is absolutely coming. Zelensky was coming out and he's saying, there is no problem. There is no chance of Russian invasion. And then all of a sudden, the invasion happened. And if those of you guys know me in my personal life, I think a year before this happened, certainly in 2021 sometime, people were, I was saying, I said, yeah, it's probably going to come. For me, it'll come on the 14th of February. And I said, well, I know it didn't come on the 14th of February, but I told people it would come. That would be when it would come, a year before. I said, look, it's most likely to come on the 14th of February. Now, the reason I gave the 14th of February is you have to pick a date, right? You have to pick some date. Obviously, 14th of February is Valentine's Day, so it's a date, and on that date, people will be doing whatever. And you've got to look at the US election cycle. Everything comes from the US election cycle. So that would mean Biden was in power. The Democrats were in power. That would mean, that he has 4 years, with under Biden before anything materialized under Trump. Also, with the Ukraine invasion, one of the reasons I said that would happen then, when it did, you've got to think of the weather, right? The Russian tanks operate better. Well, they don't operate better. They can. The ground is better for them to operate in. The tanks will operate exactly the same. They can make more distance when the ground is frozen. And what I said is, because it's, predominantly been a mild winter for the last couple of years, if it's a mild winter, they're going to keep leaving it, hoping that the ground freezes up. But it's going to get to a time where if they don't go now, it's going to be worse. So what I said is, February the 14th, it gets more and more likely that there's going to be an invasion up until February the 14th. I said every day after February the 14th, it looks like that's a day less likely. And I think they went on the 20. Did they go on the 22nd? I think they moved in on the 22nd. So but when you understand how these things work, when you understand weather, when you understand capability, when you understand manufacturing capacity, when you understand logistic chains, when you understand tactics and strategy, it's very easy to predict these things. And this is why I'm really, really concerned that the government is just caught with their pants down. Absolutely. Like the British government is absolutely caught with their pants down and totally unprepared for this conflict. It's a global embarrassment that we can't protect our airbase in Cyprus. And listen, do you know what I think this is going to lead to as well? I think this is going to lead to a situation where we just where we just leave, where we just hand it over to to just leave it. Say, right, okay, we're sorry, we're going to close down RAF Akatiri because we're not a first world nation anymore. And you know what really wound me up? Seeing the mainstream media's accounts of what's happening there. You've got the reporters standing outside RAF Akatiri. The fence was all rusted. The road was in absolute shit state. It looked like a third world country. It looked like a base on a third world country. That did not look like a British military base to me, guys. It was absolutely. I mean, how much is a tin of paint? Let's be honest. How much is a tin of paint? And I think it's Donald Trump who says, if you go into a restaurant and the front door's dirty, don't go in, because that's the image that you're presenting to everyone. And I know I'm being a little bit anal, but come on, guys. Like, how much is a tin of paint? Right, the UN is urging Middle East warring parties to give peace a chance. The UN rights chief has called for cool heads to prevail in the Middle East and urged the warring sides to pull back and give peace a chance. Yeah, I think and this is the problem, right? There's too much talk. There's too much talk while people are dying. There was plenty of, there's plenty of time for talking. Nobody wanted to negotiate. Nobody wanted a peace deal. So that's what you do. They're fighting it out. I think there's a long way to go yet. There is an absolute long way to go yet before either side will concede. Right, I've just got this in guys, 15 seconds ago. The Kremlin says the war on Iran fueled significant demand for Russian energy. The Kremlin says the war in Iran had fueled demand for Russian energy products. A day after the US Treasury issued a 30-day waiver allowing India to buy Russian oil currently stuck at sea. The conflict has left the Strait of Hormuz in a critical shipping passage, all but shut, with countries around the world cut off from 20% of the global oil and liquefied natural gas supplies. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters that Russia had remained a reliable supplier of oil and gas, both via pipelines and in liquefied form. We are seeing significant increase in demand for Russian energy resources in connection with the war in Iran, he said. So what we're seeing right now is this is going to bolster the Russian coffers. So the war in Iran has actually bolstered the Russian coffers now, because the Russians are getting more demand for their gas and oil products. People need gas and oil. People need energy. That's the reality. That's the dark. It's not a dark reality. That's just the reality of the world. People need fuel. So very soon we are going to see the Ukraine conflict absolutely ignite. And what I would say will happen is I think the Russians will make a big push soon. The whole world is the United States right now. They're committed, right? I wouldn't say they're fully committed yet. The United States have a lot of resources, but the United States are getting further into this conflict in the Middle East, right? At some point, it will be impossible for the United States to go and help anyone else because they will be fully committed to this conflict in the Middle East. Now, once that happens, it would make perfect sense. It's an absolute no-brainer, right? That the Russians would push in Ukraine, and I think they would go right up to the River Dnipro. You see, the conflict in Ukraine right now, it's not a stalemate. The Russians are pushing forwards very small every day. And let me be quite clear. Let me be fair. I spoke to, not yesterday, but maybe the day before. Or maybe the day before that. This week, I spoke to one of the guys who's just come off the front line out in Ukraine, and I said to him, I said, what's the likelihood of the Russians pushing through? And he said, no way. He said, no way the Russians can push through. However, right? That's. I do understand that people can get lulled into a false sense of security, and I've seen this before. I've absolutely seen this before. People get lulled into a false sense of security. They let their guard down, they relax, and then all of a sudden you get a huge drive and a push. Remember, guys, okay, the Russians can produce 150 tanks per month. Britain have 148 tanks. And of those 148 tanks, I would speculate at least half of them don't work, right? So from 2 minutes ago, the Kremlin says the war on Iran has fueled a significant demand for Russian energy. Right, listen, guys, if you make it members only, I won't be back. Non-members add valuable information to the chat. I have been watching for a long time, but the green controlling nature is spoiling it for me, says David Campbell. Yeah, I want to keep the chat free. I want to keep the chat free. What I'm going to do later on, I'm going to do a video I'm going to be explaining all this to everyone, right? Okay, so I understand the chat's getting huge. There's lots of people commenting, but like Davey's saying there, and you know, and I think that's a fair point. I think that's an absolute fair point. Cassandra looks like she's got beef with Googleinos. Right, I'm just jumping down, guys. Listen, I'm jumping down. There's loads of comments on the chat. There's absolutely loads. I mean, I've like got hundreds of comments on the chat, so it is difficult to throw this out there. SK1950 says, I remember we had to paint the dried grass green once on a base for a VIP visit. Yeah, look, I'm just throwing this out there again. If you guys have seen, so Britain right now, as far as I'm concerned, Britain is an absolute global embarrassment. We cannot deploy a warship because the workers will only work 9 till 5 to resupply that warship. Can you imagine? And can you guys remember when I gave you guys this analogy? Excuse me. Can you guys? Oh, Tina, hang on. Tina has become a member. Thank you, Tina, for becoming a member. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate all the members. And I am going to sort something out for the members. Do you know what? I might do like, do you know what? I think I'm going to do, do you know what I will do? I think I'm going to do like non-related, like just behind the scenes members videos. I think I'll do that. Behind the scenes, non-related members videos. So SK1950 is saying, I can remember when we had to paint the dried grass green once we had a VIP base visit. I was watching, you know, so I've just said it before. I was watching this Sky News thing, and he was standing in front of the gate to RAF Akatiri. The camp looked like a disgrace. It looked like a third world nation. The gate was rusty. There was grass growing up through the cracks in the road. It wasn't a good image for the United Kingdom. And I like SK1950 saying, I can remember once Princess Anne, I think it was Princess Anne. Princess Anne came to the barracks. I don't know what she was doing in the barracks. I didn't see her. But because Princess Anne was coming to the barracks, like SK1950 is saying, that, you know, we had to paint the web. So there was a little path where people used to walk across the grass to go to the med center. You know, it had no grass on it. So we had to paint that green. That had to be painted green. All the Land Rovers, we had to get boot polish and put boot polish on the wheels on the Land Rovers. And then somebody came to the bright idea of get an oily rag and wipe down the Land Rovers. So we had to wipe down the Land Rovers with an oily rag to make them look shiny. And then as soon as Princess Anne went, they were like, right, this is not tactical. We need to get all that oil off. So then we had to take the oil off. Anyway, yeah, you know, it's just, you have to think about image, you know, and optics. Elisa Brittany is saying wars are also psychological battles, keeping the people in a constant state of fear through media lies and propaganda. On that, right, how does everyone... I'm going to share the video. Where is it? I'm going to share this with you now, guys. How do you feel? What do you think about this, right? I don't know what Right, so what do you think about this, guys? Tell me what you think.
We are honored to come before your presence today, lifting up the arms of our president. We pray for your continued blessing and favor to rest upon him. We pray for wisdom from heaven to flood his heart, his mind, and the Lord, you will guide him in these challenging times that we're facing today. I pray for your grace and your protection over him. I pray for your grace and protection over our troops and all of our men and women serving in our armed forces. And Father, we just pray you'll continue to give our president the strength that he needs to lead our great nation as we come back to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We pray your heavenly blessing upon him in Jesus' name.
So what do you think about that, guys? That's like that's a prayer. I'm assuming that's a prayer for Donald Trump, and they're all touching him. So, like, how do you feel about that? I mean, listen. I feel every morning I should be in the office, and people should like do that to me every morning before my workout. I feel that's what I should have. But it just. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of this at the moment. There's a lot of this talk, right, about biblical prophecy and the end times. And like, I'm genuinely 50-50. I don't know whether people are trying to con us into saying it's biblical end times prophecy, so we go along with it, or with like what Elisa was saying there, psychological warfare, or whether this is real. And I genuinely don't know. Like, if you would have asked me this same question like 2 years ago, I would have said it's psychological warfare. I would 100%. I would say, yeah, not a chance, guys. This is psychological warfare. Now, I don't know. I am literally 50-50. I don't know. There's a lot of things that are happening, and I'm putting all these things into perspective. And my answer to you is, I don't know. I'm genuinely 50-50 whether we really are in some sort of biblical end times prophecy, where, it's the end times, Armageddon and all the rest of it, or whether somebody's trying to like throw things down and it's just psychological warfare. Right, I'm jumping, guys. There's loads of comments on the chat. I'm jumping down. Jeffrey Eberstein is saying, we've been misled into war by Middle East, and they have been playing games. That could be that could be true, guys. That could be absolutely true. I don't know. Silly Galadi is saying Shabbat Shalom Trump. I think Shabbat Shalom is like is that like a greeting? I think that's a greeting. I don't know. I don't know. Martin Luther would have had that. America was formed by Protestants. The Civil War was fought about immigration of Catholics in a way. These are evangelicals and Catholics who are Zio-friendly. I think you mean like, I think you mean like Zionist friendly. I think that means Zionist friendly. I don't think you mean like Zia Youssef. Caveman is saying religion is a scam one truly knows. And Danny is saying, yeah, Trump is the first Jewish president. Looked like a prisoner in The Wicker Man. Have you guys? So there's two. I've seen the one with what's his name? Nicolas Cage. I've seen The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage, but there's an older Wicker Man that's far more creepy. Rod Panhard is saying every method of divide and rule has to be run. There has to be as much chaos and confusion as possible. The global financial system is coming down and they don't want people coming for their heads. So I'm just going to jump onto here because I think right now that all roads right now are leading to universal basic income. All roads that we are on are leading to universal basic income. These wars that we're in right now, And look, I'm going to say Ukraine because it's only a matter of time. I would say months. I don't think we're going to get to December without a full military deployment in Ukraine, a full British military deployment in Ukraine. I don't see that on the cards. I can't give you a date for that yet because I don't know. And things are moving too fast anyway to be able to predict it accurately. But I do think it has to. I'm saying that there will be a full-scale British deployment of boots on the ground in some context before the end of this year. It has to happen. It really does. It has to happen. I think all roads right now are leading towards universal basic income. So first of all, you've got these wars, and they're going to be catastrophic. You've then got the you've then got the emergence of artificial intelligence, like the jobs that artificial intelligence is going to take is unbelievable. It's like they're going to take. There's so many jobs. Logistics, law, anything that you use a computer for, gone. Anything that you like, any haulage or driving, gone. Just so many delivery drivers, long haul drivers. All these jobs are gone. And then when you double that up with automation as well, what are all the humans going to do? Somebody was saying there was like there needs to be a mass culling event on Earth because there's too many people now. You don't need humans anymore, right? There's no need for humans anymore. Humans are obsolete because listen, am I just giving you the script for Terminator? I think I am, aren't I? I'm just giving you guys a script for Terminator. Paul is saying, I'm going to have to try and rearrange my therapy. Europe is doing great. Oh, they're not really, are they? They're not really. Going back to the praying over Trump, I'm surprised. I'm sure the Simpsons predicted that on one of their episodes. A lot of those Simpsons episodes, they're AI generated, and people are sharing them, saying that the Simpsons predicted this a long time ago. The Simpsons do predict a lot of stuff, though. It is quite scary. Right, I'm jumping down. Googleinos is saying, breaking news. Azerbaijan says it's withdrawing all diplomats from Iran. And Silly is saying, excuse me, Silly is saying to all the anti-Zio, anti-Jews, you understand that we're not bothered. Spread fake bottom lines. We kick ass. I think you mean kick ass. I think you may have run out of words there, Silly. I still don't know what a Zionist is, guys. I really don't. I don't know what a Zionist is. And I got like a lot of you guys were on the thing saying, oh, Sean, stop playing dumb. And I'm not playing dumb. I just understand like some of these words carry a lot of weight. And I want to understand fully what those words mean. So I Googled like Zionist. And if you Google what does a Zionist mean, and it means like a Zionist is somebody who believes in a homeland for the Jewish people. And I don't feel that's like I don't feel that's like wrong, but then you've got all these people out on the streets say and they're shouting. And I want to understand the word more. I really do. I want to understand the word more. So if anybody can explain to me, what that word, what you feel the word Zionist means, I'd love to talk about that because I really don't, understand this whole thing. And when you're using these words that have a lot of weight, you kind of need to understand them, right? You need to understand those words before you use them. So Oh, hang on. So Google is saying Finland hosts, the Russians are saying that Finland hosting nuclear weapons would threaten Russia. Yeah, so Finland has a huge, has a huge, go on, land border with Russia. And this is kind of one of the reasons when people say, oh, the Russians invaded Ukraine because it was encroaching and it wanted to be part of NATO. I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, Finland is now part of NATO and they have the biggest land border with Russia. Right, Danny is saying Zionist is Israel first, in my opinion, from my experience. Right, okay, so how's that about? Again, Danny, right, Danny, I'm talking, listen, I'm just saying, if you are Jewish, why wouldn't you want Israel first? I'm British and I want to put Britain first. Like, if you're American, why wouldn't you want to put America first? If you live in, I don't know, Somalia, you would want to put Somalia first, right? So again, I just struggle with this. I struggle with it all. SK1950 is saying, gonna subscribe, Sean. X for background. I'm retired NHS paramedic, still registered, currently one. I was in the RMC in Germany. Is that the Royal Army Medical Corps, RAMC? I think that's the Royal Army Medical Corps. Right, I'm just jumping down, guys. There's loads of comments, and I'm really struggling with these actually today. They're coming thick and fast. They are coming thick and fast. Saudi Arabia have discovered that Israel attacked its Aramco oil refinery with the help of Mossad agents from Tucker Carlson. Right, okay. Well, let's wait till there's something. Look, I don't know. Maybe that is the case. Hive Mind is saying stolen land. Right, can you give more context what we mean by stolen land? Clarendon is saying, what's happening now, Sean? Are we safe? I would say we are at a heightened threat level in the United Kingdom right now. I would say everything is a heightened threat level. Unfortunately, the British government don't put up the threat level until something's happened. So, and they're very reactive over their, they're very reactive over the threat levels. If you're a Zionist and you're part of a government for another country, that's a problem. UK, I agree. Danny, I agree. I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. Footlong Bong is saying, morning, Sean, what have I missed? See, Ukraine have gained back a lot of land. You see, yeah, they haven't really. The Ukrainians have gained back a little bit of land, but they've lost a lot more. They're not taking back more than they lose. Right, listen, guys, I am going to jump onto the main chat. Oh, hang on. I'm going to jump onto the, let me jump back, guys, because the clock is ticking. So I've been talking about the crisis in Iran, and that British troops and Britain are not protected. And what I mean by that, I'll give you guys live updates in a second. So what I mean by British troops and Britain are not safe, we're not protected. There has been an overwhelming spike in crimes in the United Kingdom. An overwhelming spike in crimes in the United Kingdom in the last, and a lot of people are pointing to migrants for a certain type of crime against young ladies. And you guys can see it all the time, can't you? On the news, you get the pictures. You get the pictures. A gang arrested. 2 Afghan migrants do this thing. And I was watching, I think it was, is it Gary Jones or Owen Jones? Is it Owen Jones? He's like the little gay guy. Yeah, I think his name's, is it Owen Jones? It might be, I don't know, whatever his name is. I think it was him. I don't know if it was. I'm pretty sure it was him. And he was saying, he was like arguing in his wokery. He was saying, and he was giving like a statistic that more people are killed by toasters in the United Kingdom. I don't know where he got this from. Reportedly, allegedly, for entertainment purposes, of course. He was saying that more people in the United Kingdom are killed by toasters or something. I think he said toasters. And he said, does that mean we should put a ban on toasters? And I thought, that's so ridiculous. But his analogy doesn't and the people who are on the media, they're just so they don't understand what's going on. They get like this image or this idea or this rhetoric or something to say and a point, and they try and make themselves look clever by talking about it. So I'll go with his analogy with the toasters, right? Let's go with that analogy with the toasters, right? No, you wouldn't ban all toasters. However, if there was a certain brand of toasters that we were importing from another country that kept electrocuting people, and people kept dying from toaster misuse, what do you think the government would do? Do you think the health and safety would say, yes, those toasters are not safe, so don't bring those toasters in? Or do you think they just say, well, it's not, all toasters are equally as guilty. Your Murphy Richards toaster that was built in, I don't know, Leeds, that's just as guilty as Yangalang toaster that was built in wherever. So these things don't hold up to scrutiny. Now, in the media, it's the big news at the moment, this £40,000 for migrant families to leave the United Kingdom. Yes, you heard it right, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys are on for the first time, migrant families are to be given £40,000 to leave the United Kingdom. Now, first of all, these things, they must have been thought through. So if we can't stop people coming to the United Kingdom, how are we going to stop them coming back? For example, let me give you the scenario. Family X, right? They're here. Right, listen, guys, you failed your asylum application. We understand it's bad news for you, but here's £40,000. You've got to go home now. Okay. So they go home. They get home and they're like, yeah, do you know what? Let's go back. So they come back on the boats. Then what happens? What happens then? Do they get told you're not allowed to come back? Or what happens if they do? You see where I'm going? And all this flim-flammery, all these little bits of paper that people sign, all these documents, all these policies, it means nothing if you can't secure your borders. So right now, the analogy I gave you guys is imagine you've got a cut on your leg, right? Imagine you've got a cut on your leg and you're laid there and you're screaming. And you've got all the doctors around you, right? And they're doctors, right? They're doctors, right? So they know what they're doing, right? Because they're doctors. And they're all stood there looking and your blood's dripping on the floor and they're going, right. One doctor says, we should get a bucket and put a bucket underneath to catch that blood. And they're like, yeah, we should. And another doctor's like, well, if we put a bucket underneath it, that's going to overflow. So we need a sponge or something. He's like, yeah, we need a sponge. And then the other doctor's like, yeah, do you know what we need? We need a funnel to funnel that blood down the drain, or in the hazmat case, whatever they're called. And then none of them can decide what's happening. All the time you're bleeding. You're bleeding. And then they decide to go to a vote. So they have a vote and they can't really decide what's the best way. All the time you're bleeding, 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 bleeding. At some point, you're going to have no more blood left. What you should do is stop the bleed at source, right? Stop the bleed at source, then you can worry about dealing with clearing the blood up, right? If you can't stop the bleed at source, none of it makes any sense. It's all a waste of time. If we can't secure our borders in the United Kingdom, nobody's safe, and everything, every penny that's spent is a waste of time. Okay, £40,000, go home. Yeah, I'm just going to come straight back. Right, okay, do they give them another £40,000? What are they going to do? Because they have to house them. They have to give them food, you know, money, accommodation, all the rest of it. That's literally, and it's going to be an absolute embarrassment. It's going to be an embarrassment. It's going to be a disgrace. It's going to be funny. I'm just seeing this as comedy now. I'm seeing this as absolute comedy now. So that's the people of Britain, right? If we can't do that, if we cannot control who's coming into our country, how do we know they're not criminals? How do we know they're not terrorists? How do we know they're not sleeper cells? We don't. That's the reality. Our troops, our soldiers, they are absolutely not in, you know, they're not protected. RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus has absolutely shown that. There was an article, where was it? So the first F-30, so let me just read this for you and I'll tell you how ridiculous this is. So one beer and bed, then back on duty, the British pilot who made RAF history by shooting down a drone. This is so embarrassing, guys, that this is like, this is so embarrassing. Let me refresh this screen. I'll share it with you. So that's the article. One beer and bed, then back on duty. The British pilot who made RAF history shooting down drones. Sorry. The F-35 pilot based in Cyprus becomes the first to destroy a target in combat. It's just so embarrassing. So an F-35, for context, costs £35,000 to stay in the air. In the clear skies above Jordan on Monday night, a British F-35 pilot made a small piece of history. Flying for 4 hours along 2 typhoons, the radar picked up 2 Shahed drones. So just for context, all right? So already, listen to this, guys, okay? So flying for 4 hours, so 4 times 35, you're looking at like 140 grand, right? So just in flight time, that's 140 grand. And I don't know if it was 4 hours there, 4 hours back, or 4 hours in total. I don't think I think it's 4 hours in total. So 140 grand in flight hours, right? That's just for one F-35. I don't know how much the Typhoons are. Let's go with $250,000, right? Because they're going to be less. So let's say flying for 4 hours alongside 2 Typhoons. Now, I don't know how much the Typhoons are to stay in the air, but let's just say that sortie to stay in the air for 4 hours cost £250,000. That's without firing any missiles, right? When the radar picked up 2 Shahed drones. Now, these Shahed drones are like 25 to 35 grand each. So already, like, without firing any missiles, we are spending probably 10 times more than the actual drone itself cost. If you consider one of these drones cost 25 grand, right? And they hit the drones with 2 ASRAM missiles. Now, I'm just going to Google how much an ASRAM missile costs. Okay, an ASRAM missile costs 200 grand each. So that's like just shy of £1 million. Just shy of £1 million that costs the taxpayers, right? just shy of £1 million to intercept 50 grand's worth of drones. Can you guys see the problems here? Can you guys understand how this is not sustainable? It's not feasible to continue that line of combat. And British troops right now need a low-cost way of intercepting these drones. It's not feasible to continue like that, guys. It really isn't. And SK1950 has also become a member. Thank you to all the members, guys. Thank you so much to the members. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down. Let me make sure there's been any updates on Iran. Where are we? Right, Iran remains under internet blackout. Global Internet Monitor NetBlock says Iran remains in digital darkness. Iran concerned attacks in northwest aimed at creating vacuum for rebel fighters. That is exactly what it's for. Are they ridiculous? Oh, hang on. There's just something coming right now. Iran says targeted US facilities in Kuwait, attacks to continue in the coming hours. So this is literally from 30 seconds ago. The Iranians are continuing their attacks in Kuwait. Attacks to continue in the next coming hours. Iran's army said its recent strikes in Kuwait targeted US bases and that more attacks will follow soon. Over the past few hours, various types of destructive drones of the army's ground forces have targeted American military bases in Kuwait in large numbers. Iranian state TV cited the army saying these attacks will continue in the coming hours. Again, nobody has a low-cost interceptor because nobody wants to build a low-cost interceptor. Do you know why nobody wants to build a low-cost interceptor? Because there's no money in a low-cost interceptor. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close everything down now. I'm going to be straight back on. I'm going to be straight back on. I'm not going to be straight back on. I'm going to go over there into the corner and I'm going to do a members video and I'm just going to talk about this membership. I'm just going to talk about this membership. It's going to be non-related. Oh, hang on a minute. Patriot missiles cost American taxpayers between 3 and 5 million. So are we saying that we are sending missiles that are worth 3 to 5 million to take out a $25,000 drone? This is big money. So Iran is what? Listen, okay. So if they have that capability, they will absolutely use it, guys. Regardless, whatever, they will definitely use it. Took out 800 drones. America withdrawing interceptors from the Pacific Theater because they are running out. Iran had reportedly 500,000 ballistic missiles. Yeah, and it's not just the ballistic missiles; it's the use of these cheap drones. It's the use of these cheap drones to deplete the expensive missiles. And then you fire the, and then you fire the good stuff. Azerbaijan, that was from a couple of minutes ago. Azerbaijan are removing all their diplomats now from Iran, and the situation in the western. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, Sherry. That's what I'm going to do because I just totally remember. I totally forgot, but I've remembered now. For you, Sherry, I'm going to do that. So in a couple of in the next hour, that video will be online. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close everything down now. I'm going to close everything down. You guys are fantastic. You're beautiful. Thank you for the... hang on. Yes. Do you want to know the funny part? America is in debt to themselves. Yeah, like, I don't know who you're in debt to if you print your own money. Right, I am going to close it down, ladies and gentlemen. You guys are fantastic. You're beautiful. Thank you to you guys who become members. And I will definitely be back on this afternoon to give another update. And I'll catch you guys later.